We have lots to discuss in today's video, including the latest trade talk around the NHL. Is there any chance the Toronto Maple Leafs pull the same type of deal that we've seen with the Avalanche and Mikko Rantanen? If they cannot sign Mitch Marner, would they go down that same road, or is this a different situation? We'll discuss that. Plus, a couple of players with the New York Islanders generating lots of interest around the NHL, Brock Nelson and Kyle Palmieri. Plus, a very interesting player on the Buffalo Sabres that has not been getting a lot of talk and attention in the rumor mill apparently is available for the right deal. Plus, we have word today that the Penguins might be for sale for at least a minority interest. We have another suspension regarding a young defenseman in Tampa, a big signing in Washington for goalie Logan Thompson, and we're also going to talk about a potential 2028 World Cup of Hockey and why are Sens fans so upset about the announcement that came today about doing some games in Quebec City. We'll discuss what upset the fans, why they're so irritated, and how the team has handled everything coming up next. Welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a lot to discuss in today's video. It really is a jam-packed news type video with some rumors mixed in there as well. So certainly want to watch all the way through to get all your latest news and updates from around the entire NHL. So let's start first with a suspension from the Department of NHL Player Safety. A young defenseman for the Lightning, Emil Lillberg, has been suspended for 2 games for what they're calling interference against the Detroit Red Wings the other night against JT Compher. The hit was late. The puck was long gone. There was definitely contact with the head as well. It was not a good play. Compher is injured, has missed some time. Will be out of the lineup for tonight's game as well. Just not a good play. Not a wise move at all. Of course, this is a player with very little NHL experience and obviously very little NHL history, but 2-game suspension is what he's been given. Is totally justified here. Like I said, if you watch the play, you see Compher pass the puck. The puck is gone. There's way too many, counts of seconds there. I mean, it's not, sometimes even what's considered late is really not that long, but long enough that they're no longer eligible to be checked. And then it does look like there's head contact as well. So totally justifiable suspension. Now, we also had a trade today. There is a video on the channel from earlier in case you missed it. But the St. Louis Blues today did trade defenseman Scott Perunovich to the New York Islanders. A pretty small return, a conditional 5th-round pick. So not much going back to St. Louis. Perunovich, for the most part, in the last couple of years, has almost been used as a spare part. Has had difficulty kind of becoming a regular in the Blues lineup. I know they've had a very much a veteran blue line. Obviously, lots of guys there sign, long-term deals. Whether it be Colton Parayko, Justin Falk. They picked up Nick Leddy a couple years back. They picked up Cam Fowler this year. I know Torrey Krug's been there a while. He's been out all year injured. But still, the list goes on with veteran defensemen on long-term contracts. And it's been tough for a guy like Perunovich to kind of crack that lineup. Over the course of 3 years, he's played sparingly when they've had injuries or whatnot, but he's got like 97 games of experience. Pretty good offensive skills, decent skater. The Islanders have injuries. He had a great college run with the University of Minnesota Duluth as well. He's still young enough that there could be some untapped potential there. I like this deal for the Islanders. I think there's a real possibility there that he could fit in and might be able to grab a spot and kind of secure an NHL future. So we'll see what happens with Perunovich and the Islanders, but definitely, like I said, a small trade, but one that could be impactful for the Islanders down the road here. Big signing in Washington today. Logan Thompson, who's arguably been one of the best goalies in the NHL this season, probably right up there with Connor Hellebuyck as one of the top 1 or 2 goaltenders across the league, with very few losses on his record this year. Incredible stats. Of course, Logan Thompson came over to Washington as part of a trade with the Vegas Golden Knights at the draft. Of course, with Logan Thompson, where the draft was in Vegas at the Sphere, was actually doing an autograph session while the deal was announced. Apparently, he had already known about the trade and still went through with the autograph session anyways, but was unhappy in Vegas, but he's found a home in Washington, and he has made the most of it. Like I said, putting up incredible stats, gets a 6-year contract extension, total value of $35.1 million, giving him an average annual value of $5.85 million. Based on the numbers he's putting up this year, that is a very good contract. It's going to take him to the prime years of his career, into his early 30s. So for me, I have no problem with this contract. The only, I guess, slight concern is, will he play at this level for a bit large chunk of that contract. That's what you hope, right? And it's tough for goaltenders, which is why you see teams be a little bit reluctant sometimes to roll out the red carpet and give the long-term contract. But based on how he's played, it's kind of hard not to. He was a pending unrestricted free agent, and you knew that if they didn't get this done, somebody's going to overpay and bring him on board next year and end up, hoping he'll help turn things around between their crease. But, he'll stay in Washington, team up with Charlie Lindgren, and Washington's pretty well in good shape that way, goaltending-wise. I wonder what that means as well. You're probably looking at a potential, for Hunter Shepard. I wonder at some point if he's going to want to go to another organization to see if he can get into the NHL with a more regular basis. Obviously, with Thompson and Lindgren there kind of holding things down. We also have news today from the NHL waiver wire. The Buffalo Sabres today placed forward Nicholas Aube-Kubel on waivers. So far this year with Buffalo, he's appeared in 19 games and has 1 goal and 1 assist. So we'll find out tomorrow afternoon if he's been picked up or if he will be reassigned. Some other roster moves, injury updates, and another signing as well. The Red Wings today signed a very likable player, and his name is Dominic Shine. He gets a 2-year contract. He's 31 years old, and he had been playing with them in the American Hockey League, so he's not brand new to the organization, but he is new to the NHL, and he's getting to make his NHL debut tonight. Obviously, the Red Wings have some guys that are out. They needed to bring somebody up. He would need a contract that allows him to be called up to get that, so Yzerman signs him to a 2-year contract. So obviously this is a popular signing. I know he's a well-liked player, an older guy. You like to see these stories of persistence and perseverance, trying to continue to stick with it and to make your debut and to get a shot at the highest level of NHL play here. And he's done that. So hopefully he makes the most of it tonight in the Red Wings game and can try to impress enough to kind of stick around. But to make his NHL debut at age 31 is a rarity. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think he's the first player to be over the age of 30. I think it was back in the late 80s, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a really, really, really long time. We're probably talking like, it's definitely well over 30 years, if not a little bit more. So it's a long time coming, so good on him. The Red Wings tonight, like I said, are without JT Compher. Patrick Kane is still out, and I'm not sure if he ended up getting in the lineup because I didn't have time to check before I started to record, because I'm recording right around the time the game starts. But Vladimir Tarasenko was questionable for tonight as well. In the New York Islanders organization, Ryan Pulock, of course, officially on IR now, which is part of the reason why we saw that trade to get Perunovich. And Marcus Högberg also injured with an upper body injury and is also moved to injured reserve. In Ottawa, we found out today, but this is not direct from the team, so it's not official yet, but it's sounding like when we saw Nick Cousins in the game against the Leafs on Saturday have a leg-on-leg collision with Jacob Quillian making his NHL debut. It was a scary scenario. Thankfully, the youngster I know there was no intent, but when he was skating, he left his leg stuck out. Cousins is coming in. It's an unfortunate collision. I honestly do think it should have been a penalty on the Leafs. Probably just a 2-minute minor for tripping because there's no intent. I guess sometimes you see majors for tripping, but Cousins had to be helped off the ice, and it didn't look good. And it's sounding like it's going to be a pretty serious knee injury that could keep him out of action for a couple of months. I guess we'll wait to confirm that. But obviously, it doesn't mean for sure it's season ending. If you look at the calendar, thankfully with the Four Nation tournament coming up, that gives players, that are battling injuries some time where they're going to have a chance to not miss too many games for a couple of weeks. So obviously that'll help, but Cousins could be out for an extended period of time. As I mentioned with the Four Nation Face-Off tournament, not too far away here. We're just over 2 weeks away from that. Darren Dreger of TSN is reporting that around the time of that tournament, so I would assume either at the beginning of it or I would say probably at the kickoff is the most likely scenario. It's expected that Gary Bettman and Bill Daly likely have a press conference to announce some league business and kind of give an update on a few things and obviously talk about the tournament and whatnot. And it's expected that they're going to hopefully announce plans, not a given, plans for a 2028 World Cup of Hockey. Right now, it's not looking like it's going to be involving the IIHF. Right now, this tournament for the Four Nation Face-Off is put on strictly by the NHL, which means that in order to participate, you have to be on an NHL roster. Now, if the IIHF is involved, then you get more set of international rules, and it would open the door for teams that are participating to have players from other parts of the other leagues, other parts of the world, whatnot, that are not in the NHL. Now, I guess sometimes that can be challenging in a way because other leagues may not want to shut down and may not want to make players available anyway. But if it's going to be an NHL-based tournament, then it'll be NHL-based players that will be eligible only to participate. So we could expect an announcement for the 2028 World Cup of Hockey when we hear Bettman speak around the beginning of the four-nation tournament. Now, as I mentioned as well, another situation to watch is the Pittsburgh. We know that the Penguins are owned by Fenway Group, and Kevin Weeks today, along with Emily Kaplan of ESPN, reporting that Fenway Group has been expected to take the Penguins to the market, and they're looking to sell a chunk of the team. Now, it's expected that they're still going to retain controlling interest. So they're looking to sell a minority stake, but it could be a big minority stake. Maybe they find an owner that's, interested in maybe taking on more down the road. It's hard to say. So really from a day-to-day business perspective for the Penguins, I don't really think it changes a whole lot of anything. I guess the more ownership people that are involved, you wonder, I guess, when it comes to like the people running the team, does that have any effect on Kyle Dubas? Probably not in the short term, but if the team continues to struggle, and obviously we're looking at another year of missed playoffs, most likely for this team. At what point are they going to cut the cord and start to rebuild? And is there going to be any concerns about who's running the franchise? We'll have to wait and see. But minority stake of the team definitely available for sale. Now, as I mentioned as well, there was a situation today where this morning the Ottawa Senators held a press conference in Quebec City, which what they were announcing was a good thing, and it's really not a big deal, but it's more not so much about what was announced, but about some of the comments and some of the social media posts that followed, and just how it all went down, which has really riled up the fan base. So here's the gist of it, and I'll explain, because you probably, if you're on social media and you follow NHL, especially on Twitter or X, I guess, you would see a major pushback from the Sens fan base here today, and I get it. It's probably justified, and I can explain what's going down. So essentially, the Senators today, they had Thomas Chabot on hand with owner Michael Andlauer. They also had alumni Antoine Vermette, who resides in the Quebec City area, be present and take part with them as well, to announce that at the beginning of next season, during training camp, that the Ottawa Senators are going to be spending, I think, around 4 or 5 days of their training camp in the Quebec City area, and they're going to have 2 preseason games in the Videotron Center, of course, which is an NHL-ready arena. The Quebec City has been ready and able and wanting an NHL team for a long time. They built that building so that if they had an opportunity to get a team back, there'd be no excuses that they weren't ready, right? So the NHL told them, well, get yourself a building, and if an opportunity comes up, we'll talk, basically. And it's been that way for a long time, and there hasn't been a whole lot of talk that we know of. Bettman has met with the Quebec government and different people out there that have had an interest in the team, but there's really nothing been ever really any serious about getting it done. So essentially, getting a couple preseason games in a neutral market, most people are looking at this going, what's the big deal? And here's the thing. It's not a big deal. It's how it was done. So during this press conference, for one, they've never had a press conference to announce preseason games in other locale. If you listen to President of Business Operations, Cy Leader, and Michael Andlauer, essentially, they want to expand the fan base of the Ottawa Senators, which is a smart move. The Ottawa Senators, as a whole, if you look at who they're surrounded by, you get the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Montreal Canadiens, those franchises have a lot more history. They've been around, for over 100 years. Like, they have this deep history with it, massive fan bases. The Ottawa Senators are still a much newer team, and they have a smaller fan base. Ottawa's also a smaller city than Montreal and Toronto, and they're looking at an opportunity here to say, okay, you know what? There's a big part of the country that's kind of untapped that we could be their primary team. And it's not just about coming to the games. Okay, they've already made an effort to grow their game and to grow their presence amongst the community in Gatineau. And that's something they're going to continue to do. Obviously, Ottawa's very much a francophone, like a bilingual city. A lot of people, unfortunately, don't know that. There's a lot more French than people realize, and they want to engage more with the francophone community and kind of try to expand their footprint into Quebec, and that's a smart move. There's, like I said, an untapped community there that people that support the Sens and don't always get enough recognition for it. And if you look at from a broadcasting, from a TV perspective, for their regional broadcast, because we know all the Canadian teams have a regional broadcast agreement, mostly with TSN, the Sens region for regional broadcasts includes pretty much that whole big section of Quebec, as well as Eastern Canada, like the Atlantic, where I live, in the Maritimes, and New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, all the way to Newfoundland, PEI. So, there's a massive region here, like especially like past Montreal, where you go into Quebec City and into Atlantic and the Maritimes, where there's no NHL team. So they're looking at it saying, well, why can't the Ottawa Senators be their team, right? So they're trying to expand their footprint, expand their brand into those areas. And I don't think anybody has a problem with that. I really don't. I think if you want to make the Ottawa Senators a bigger, deeper fan base, the more viewers you have on TV, the better, the more likely those people are to consider traveling into Ottawa for a game. It's all good. It's really like, to me, that's all fine and dandy. The part that really riled up fans was that owner Michael Andlauer was talking and said that we'll start with 2 preseason games. And they were asked, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, one of the reporters asked him about, would you do more than that in a regular season? And he said he'd be open to doing regular season games there. Well, that was a big no-no. That set off some major sensitivities there. And then on top of that, you had a photo op with Spartacat, their mascot, wearing a Nordiques jersey. And then later in the day, the Sens social media team posted a picture of a split jersey, and I'm sure this is a Photoshop, but a split jersey where it was half Ottawa Senators and half Quebec Nordiques. It's like, okay, you got to remember, this team endured really bad ownership for an extended period of time during the Melnyk era. They were extremely sensitive. They were threatened with relocation numerous times, especially to that spot in Quebec City. Melnyk made it clear on a number of occasions that he would consider that. You have a situation now where you're trying to build a new arena in downtown. You're dealing with the NCC, who are slower than coal molasses, which we know because it's government. That's just how things run. You're having a difficult time reaching an agreement. You have an agreement in principle to get a lease done, but it's not, firm enough that there's shovels in the ground or anything moving along 100%. So there's a little bit of seed of doubt in people's minds that what if this doesn't happen? And then within no time, you've got the owner showing up in Quebec City to do a press conference instead of just a press release saying we're going to do games here in the fall for preseason, and we're open to doing regular season games here. And Spartacat's wearing a Nordiques jersey. And he also made mention he'd love to see the Quebec Nordiques come back. And it's just like, okay, it's just giving all the wrong vibes. Michael Andlauer has been a terrific owner for the Ottawa Senators. He has done all the right things, but this was a big, big no-no. And they should have been able to read the room and know that the fact that they're doing preseason games there and they want to promote their brand more in Quebec, I don't think is a big deal. I don't think anybody would get upset over that. It's the whole branding of the Nordiques and the regular season game comments that really pissed people off. And so Cyril Leader, the president of business operations, went on TSN 1200 and took a bunch of questions and explained the situation. And honestly, I think he did a pretty good job for the most part of kind of calming the waters here a little bit. Michael Andlauer also made mention that he's under no circumstances is he consider moving the team. But this team is, like I said, it's almost like a PTSD situation where he went through such turmoil during all those years of the poor ownership era that all of a sudden you have a reason to be happy. The team's doing well. They're trending towards being a playoff team. They just came off of back-to-back wins on the weekend. It's a Monday morning, and this is the headline. It just kind of ruined the vibe and sucked all that positive energy out. And now you got people saying, well, geez, season ticket renewals are coming right up. I don't know if I want to support this team now. Are you going to move the team on me? Like, all of a sudden you get all these seeds of doubt. So at the end of the day, I don't think there's any reason for that. I think it's just the optics and how this was done. I think Sens fans need to to chill a little bit. Did Michael Landauer maybe make a little bit of a misstep today? Yes, he did. But cut the guy some slack. He just bought the team. He probably overpaid to buy him. He's been a fantastic, phenomenal owner, the owner of the people, if there ever was one. He's been a man of his word. He's given the fans no reason to think he's going to, lie or pull the rug out or anything of that nature. So everybody, I think, just needs to chill a little bit, understand that this is strictly a business perspective to grow the brand amongst an untapped market, at least what they feel is an untapped market. Is no different than them doing preseason stuff in Halifax and the Maritimes, because, again, the regional market includes Atlantic Canada. No different than anything else. Like they've done the Craft Hockeyville games throughout New Brunswick a few times. They've been to Newfoundland. This is all part of that. And this, as far as the whole NCC stuff and the issues they're running into getting this downtown arena, these preseason games have been in the works for an extended period of time, which a leader confirmed that it's been like over 6 weeks since this was kind of being worked on. So the announcement that we recently heard that they're having difficulty with an agreement on the NCC had no bearing here. I think, to be honest, the fact that they're doing it is great, and I understand they want to put a bigger push on. But if there would have been just a press release and not such a big fuss with all the mentions of the Nordique stuff, it would not have gone the way that it did. But unfortunately, it set off a big episode on social media that was not necessary at all. And unfortunately, it took all the happiness, all the positive vibe of how well the team has been doing this past month, and all these, they've had 3 consecutive weekends of back-to-backs. 3 weekends in a row, back-to-backs, 2 of which had travel, and they're 6-0. Linus Ullmark has missed a month. The team hasn't missed a beat. Lots of reasons to be happy. Lots. But they didn't need this. And it's just a complete misstep on my part. So hopefully Sens fans can relax and put their trust and faith back in Michael Landauer. I don't think there's any reason to think otherwise. But that's the big story there. Now, as far as trade talk goes, we heard from Dave Pagnotta. Buffalo Sabres, we've heard a lot about guys like Bowen Byram, Dylan Cousins. We've heard that they've been in on the Elias Pettersson trade talk, that they're one of the teams in the mix. Elliot Friedman even referred to them the other day as the front runner. If there's going to be a Pettersson trade, that might be a very likely destination. But one player that's not getting a lot of talk and airtime in the rumor mill by a lot of the insiders, but according to Dave Pagnotta, Owen Power's name is out there, and a lot of teams have asked about him. And the Sabres have not shied away. They are open to it. Now, it doesn't mean for sure they would do it. They're not going to do it just for the sake of doing it, of course. But he's not considered an untouchable. I would think maybe Rasmus Dahlin is. But amongst your decor, Byram doesn't have the long-term deal. Power does. A little bit different style of defenseman. If they can make look at the Sabres. Unfortunately, it's going to be another lost season. They are so far behind that getting into the playoffs at this point is a lost cause. If you look at, I think they're 10 points behind Detroit even, and Detroit has a big gap to get to the playoffs. So I think they're 5 or 6 points out or whatever it is. Then you go up to Montreal and Ottawa, and they're I can't remember how many points it is. It's 15, 16, 17 points. It's crazy. I feel terrible for Sabres fans. They deserve better, and I would not shock me if we see a Sabres blockbuster deal to shake things up of some sort. Pettersson might be a great pickup for them, but is he the right guy for them? I'm not sure. But the fact that they're willing to include Owen Power will open the Sabres up to being involved in any of these other blockbuster deals that are, potentially in the works. When it comes to the Islanders, I know we got 2 different reports. We've seen one from Larry Brooks talking about how the Devils are very interested in bringing back Kyle Palmieri, and we've also know that Brock Nelson is very much available. I've seen different reports saying that Brock Nelson is very unlikely to return to the Islanders next year. They don't think a re-signing is something that he wants, and that both players are very likely to be moved. I know we've seen the Islanders continue to kind of do some moves here. They brought in Tony DeAngelo, who signs after returning from the KHL. They picked up Scott Perunovich today. They're making moves with the intent on not giving up on the season, which is, I get it. It's fine to some extent. You have to keep people wanting to be interested in the games, but they're running into a major attendance issue there. If you look at the games, I don't care what the tickets being sold are, it's bare. And we even caught Matthew Barzal the other night on the bench, which looked like, if you can read lips, saying that how empty it was and it was a joke. Now, whether or not that's exactly what he said, we can't confirm that. But that's what a lot of people are thinking, and it sounded and looked that way. So we'll have to see. But again, these are two players that are veterans. I think Brock Nelson especially, they can get a good haul for him. I think Dallas and Minnesota are your primary contenders. The fact that he's a centerman, a winger, can play in all situations, hit 30 goals multiple times, can play up and down your lineup. I think they can get a first-round pick for him. It would not shock me in the least if they did. Kyle Palmieri, I don't think it's going to be quite as much, but hopefully at the very least they can get, an interesting prospect. Maybe it's a second rounder. I'm not sure. I'm not confident that Palmieri will generate a first rounder, but yeah, they need to retool and they need to add some youth to that roster. So those two guys definitely are expected to be on the move. And as I mentioned with Toronto, is there any expectation or any possibility, because I know there's been a lot of talk since the Rantanen deal the other day, is Marner's another massive name that's a top player in the league that's not signed? Because really the Avalanche traded Rantanen over fear of losing him because of a gap in contract negotiations. Now, we know that from what we've heard, it sounds like the Leafs and Marner hasn't had a lot of talks. It sounded like I think both sides were kind of content to let things kind of play out. I think if Marner wanted to get a deal done, they could probably push to get things started. At this point, that's another big topic. I heard Darren Dreger talking about it. Obviously, well-connected insider with the Maple Leafs. And the belief is that there is still very much mutual interest between the Leafs and Marner for him to stay and to get signed. We know that they have Matthews signed. They got Nylander signed. Belief is that they are interested in bringing back John Tavares. There was some contract talks before he got hurt. I'm not sure how far things got. At some point, though, there was a few insiders saying that they thought a deal might be getting close. But obviously, it's probably a wait and see now. I still think there's very much mutual interest. Obviously, this could be a situation where they may want to wait and see how things go in the playoffs. Because at the end of the day, there are some things that just don't matter if you don't get it done in the playoffs. And obviously, I know Marner sometimes gets a bad rap for not being a playoff performer. I don't agree with that. For the most part, generally speaking, Marner has been a good playoff performer. The problem with Marner is that in the biggest games, when it mattered the most, that seems to be when he grips the stick a little too much. The pressure seems to get to him. So in some game 6 and 7s, that's when he has struggled. But overall, not so much. He actually has been, in my opinion, a pretty decent, fairly consistent performer. But when it matters most, can you get that big goal? And that's always what it boils down to at the end of the day. And that's the thing. So for me, there's lots of talk out there for Marner. Can the same thing happen? For me, I'm going to say right now the answer is no. I'd be shocked if the Leafs pulled that kind of deal, seeing as how the Leafs season has gone. They're in first place. And I just don't know that there is that same kind of fear of losing him for nothing. The other big thing here is that Mikko Rantanen did not have a full no-move clause. He had some trade protection, but he didn't have all teams blocked. And I think he may have gone to Carolina anyways. I mean, I know he had lots of reasons to, if he's going to be moved, to go there. At the same time, staying in Colorado seemed like it was very much a big option for him. But Marner has a full no-move. Marner would have to agree to any trade. And do you think at this point in the season, he's going to want to give up having another shot at the playoffs with his team and prove that they can finally overcome? They've won a round recently, 2 years back, but they've never gotten past round 1. He's going to want another shot to prove the doubters and the haters wrong and deal with the contract in the offseason. So it's a completely different scenario in that sense. And because of that, along with the idea that there is mutual interest for something to get done, I don't think a Marner trade is something that's even remotely possible to see. I'd be shocked. I think you're going to maybe see a few depth moves. I think the Leafs want to get another centerman. I think you could use some players like a Nick Robertson or Connor Timmins or some other pieces there that could be available for trade to upgrade the roster. But a Marner trade, no, ain't happening. Not saying 100% he re-signs and is back next year. I think the odds are favorable that they get it worked out. But I think it's a little early for me to say I think it's a slam dunk 100%. But at the end of the day, it is something that is more likely than not. But let me know what you think down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.